You're listening to Frankly Speaking Sports with Larry Frank on Northeast Streaming Sports.
Short outings by both starting pitchers to become a battle of the bullpens, and right now Toronto out in the lead, and the Rays got to claw back.
Well, here is Ji-Man Choi batting right-handed and getting into this one, and that baby is out of here. Ji-Man Choi jumping on that first pitch, batting right-handed against the left-hander Kay, and he belts the home run.
That ball was hammered.
Big strikeout night all the way around, but certainly for the Rays staff. Wave and a miss, swinging and a miss, and strike three call. Well, that's a team record for the Rays. They've recorded 19 strikeouts tonight. 19 strikeouts for the pitching staff, a 9-inning club record. That one is going to get out of here, dropping into the bullpen. There, this one goes. A shot deep and gone. Oh, and he launched that one.
And today, a complete beatdown, beating the Red Sox by a final score of 17-8. And for the first time in 10 years and second time in franchise history, the Rays come to Fenway and take all 4 games.
Mike Brasso. Well, Brasso was at the plate last night in the 9th inning, ducking a pitch at his head for 101 miles per hour. Now the 2-2, that's lifted high and deep into left, and that baby's gone. 2-run shot by Mike Brasso, and the Rays are answering in a big way here in the first inning. Home runs by Rosarena, and now the 2-run shot by Mike Brasso.
Had to feel that he got a little bit of revenge when he hit the 2-run home run as the 0-1 pitch now on its way. There's a swing and a fly ball to right center field and fairly deep. Back on it is Hicks to the wall. It's a 2-homer game. Mike Brasso goes oppo. His second home run tonight, his 5th home run of the season, and the Rays get on the other side of the slam. 5-0 Tampa Bay.
I'll tell you what, 24 hours ago, I wonder how many Yankee fans had really heard about Mike Brasso. He may never let them forget about him now. What an answer.
Rays are 1 strike away from the American League East crown here. Now the right-hander ready, the 0-2. Swing and a miss. He struck him out and the Rays win. And for the 3rd time in team history, the Tampa Bay Rays are the American League East champions. They're throwing some of the confetti into the air, and there are high fives, handshakes, and some hugs, and the masks are on.
Well, this is an interesting confrontation here.
What an at-bat going here. 3-2, Brasso sends one into left field. Gardner going back, and it is up and gone! Mike Brasso has homered, and the Rays have a 2-1 lead. What a moment for Brasso. Tampa Bay on top on the 10th pitch of the at-bat.
First career postseason home run for Mike Brasso. You could feel that coming.
One of the biggest home runs in Rays history. Reddick is gone, and the Rays are an out away now. Aledmus Diaz will step to the plate. Last hope for the Astros. And on the first pitch, in the air, right field, that is playable. Coming in, Margot, and that's it! The Tampa Bay Rays have won the American League pennant! The Rays are going to the World Series!
It's 2 on with 2 out, and the Rays are going to ask for the biggest hit in the life of Brett Phillips. Jansen, that is into center field. Here comes Kiermaier. Phillips has tied the game. Arena coming around. Throw home. Now he stumbles, but the ball gets away. Tampa Bay wins it. Brett Phillips, Game 4 hero.
Oh, yes, it is. How sweet it is to have baseball back. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Frankly Speaking Sports. I'm your host, Larry Frank, and we are streaming live today on Northeast Streaming Sports. That is correct. We are on Frankly Speaking Sports. We are on many other platforms, but we are streaming live today from Northeast Streaming Sports. For those of you that are on the Frankly Speaking Sports group site, if you can please do me a favor and share this to your timeline so we can get as many fans around the nation watching this terrific show. Tonight we decided to do something differently and start the streaming on Northeast Streaming Sports. We wanted to go out and try it that way tonight. So we have lots and lots and lots of different people from the United Kingdom to America to Canada listening to our great show tonight. And believe me, we got lots to talk about. It's going to start off, obviously, tonight in about 20 minutes, not even 20 minutes, probably 15 minutes. We're going to have former Major League outfielder, played for most noticeably the Cubs, the Mets, to name a few. Brian McRae is going to be on with us talking about his career in Major League Baseball. But before we get to baseball, we want to make sure we give the Tampa Bay Lightning equal amount of time, as it's been now 3 straight games. That's right, 3 straight games that your Tampa Bay Lightning have won. It's been just an incredible ride for the Tampa Bay Lightning, who seem to play a couple of games well. They lose a couple games, and now they're back on the winning formula, having a rematch with the Dallas Stars. They won the other night 5-0. They got 3 goals in the second period. Vasilevsky, 20 saves. It was his second straight shutout of the night. A big goal by Anthony Cirelli, who was out 6 games, came back in this game and scored a shorthanded goal. But, when I look at this game, and I want to look at one of the most, they needed something to spark them up. When this game started, the Dallas Stars came out throwing their weight around and doing lots and lots of different things in this game, and the Lightning needed a spark. They needed a play that could get this team back in the game and let the Dallas Stars know that they weren't going to take any of their crap. And it came with about 6 minutes in the first period, and Pat Maroon decided to be that player to get this team going.
Wait. He's in the corner now. Robertson. Penalty call coming up, and we are going to have a fight here. Maroon is going to go with Alexiak. Stand back. These are 2 heavyweights at center ice here at Amalie Arena. Alexiak getting that right free. Maroon getting tangled up there. Comes back with a right of his own.
These 2 guys are big and heavy. One of those lands, boy, can knock you right off the feet. Alexiak, I said, a guy that just pounds you into the end wall, and Maroon does the same thing. Obviously, there was a lot of talking going on at the beginning of this game, and things have carried over from the Stanley Cup Finals. That is very evident, and the linesmen are not about to get in there yet. These guys are emptying the tank on each other. Ooh, a couple of pretty good blows there from both of them, but both of them still have their helmets on, so that makes a huge difference when you're in a fight like this. And then look at that, some mutual respect after the fact. Unreal. Great.
Yeah, and it ended up being the spark that the Tampa Bay Lightning needed. I mean, they had 3 goals in the second period, like I said. Point and Maroon got the other 2 goals in that second period. Stamkos got 1 late in the third, and Palat ended up getting the first goal in the first period. But one thing about this team, this Lightning team, if you did not know it, is right now second in the National Hockey League with an 88.1% penalties kill, which what that basically means is less than 12% of the time teams are scoring on a power play. Just an incredible job. And that fight between Alexiak and Maroon was just the starting point. Lightning go on. They win 5-0. It's their 3rd in a row. And it was the first time they played the Dallas Stars. First time due to the weird schedule that's been going on. We want to welcome Tommy from Temple Terrace to our show. We are streaming live tonight on Northeast Streaming Sports. If you're not a member of Northeast Streaming Sports or Frankly Speaking Sports, all Crew Life. Make sure you become members. There are so many good things that these groups do for the average daily sports fans. You can look, I got a new display behind me. Finally found a USF banner, which we'll be utilizing that obviously tomorrow on our USF Bullseye show. But for those of you fans watching on Northeast Streaming Sports or Frankly Speaking Sports or Crew Life or for whatever, Rays Life, whatever platform you are watching on, can you please do me a favor? Take 1 second and share this to your timeline. We're going to be talking a little bit more. We just got done talking about the Lightning. Going to talk a little bit about the Rays. Then we're going to be joined by former Major League center fielder Brian McRae. And then after that interview, we're going to be talking about the acquisition today that went down between the Arizona Cardinals and J.J. Watt, and take some calls or take some comments on what you, the fans, actually think about that, which I thought it was a terrific move, but there's some people that are saying they're not sure it was a great move. So we'll talk more about that, after the interview with Brian McRae. But, one thing I do want to get into real quickly, and as we go ahead and we try to keep you updated on the Rays spring training, and, the Rays did not win today. They lost 6-5 in a 6-inning game. But, they split the first 2 games to start spring training. But the big news today was Joey Wendell got hit in the face when he was hit by a pitch in this game versus the Minnesota Twins. Looks like he's going to be fine. He'll be day-to-day. Just a lot of nerves racked up, obviously, being hit in the face. But, I'm hearing a lot of the fans, and a lot of the fans, when we start spring training baseball, they're talking about, oh, no, the Rays lost. Oh, no, the pitching is terrible. Oh, no, this. Oh, no, that. Folks, calm down. Calm down, calm down. It's spring training. These are the games where your pitchers are supposed to try different things out, like Glasnow with the slider today, where your hitters are trying to get their timing down, where people are trying to get in a rhythm, so when the regular season starts, they're able to take off with a burst of speed. Do not worry about these games. Do not let wins and losses define what spring training is all about. This is about fundamentals, getting your fielding down, getting your plays when a runner's on second, and then it might be a sacrifice bunt. What do you do? Where do you go? What base are you going to go to? And things like that. That's what spring training's all about. Spring training's about the pitcher covering first base. Remembering when the ball is hit to the right side, you shoot over to the bag so that you can take the throw from the first baseman or the second baseman, whichever is necessary. It's about the hitters going in the cages all day long, getting hundreds and hundreds of swings a day until they feel comfortable with the stance and with the daily routine that they have going on. That's what baseball is all about this time of year. Too many of you folks are worrying about what does each hitter do. Now, it was nice to see Austin Meadow and Mike Brazour both hit home runs if you're a Tampa Bay Rays fan. But, I mean, you can't go out there and start saying, oh, Glasnow didn't look good today. He gave up 2 runs on 2 hits, a ding, 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 dong for a home run. And those things happen in spring training. I want to see him do that now. Let him work on his mechanics. Let him work on his routine so that when the season starts, he will be ready to go. Then I'm listening to some of these people today, and, I've been saying this, and I want to thank all you people who are, repetitive listeners on my show, because I know you bring this stuff up, and thank you. And Tommy, you're one of them. Thank you so very much, as I see you're on now. We've been saying, and Larry's been saying, which is me, that they will be fine with pitching. Yes, they lost Martin and they lost Snell. I've been saying it all spring long, or all winter long, since they lost Snell, that it's not as big of a loss as everyone is saying. Without his Cy Young award-winning year, he was an under 500 pitcher for the Tampa Bay Rays. He had one unbelievable, terrific, amazing year that you will never be able to take away from him, and he doesn't deserve to have it taken away from him. But that's all he had with the Rays. Yes, he had a terrific Game 6 where we can argue all day long and probably be right that the wrong decision was made to pull him out of that game. But besides that, Snell was nothing more than a 500 pitcher. He was nothing more, whether you like to hear it or not like to hear it, than a Chris Archer who they picked up. But they picked up much more than a Chris Archer. They picked up a McClue. They picked up a Rich Hill. And today I'm hearing, wow, maybe this team didn't do so bad replacing the guys they lost. No, they didn't. They didn't. They got guys still in the minor leagues that are veterans like Hunter Strickland, who knows how to throw a baseball inside and knock people off the plate, who I think is going to be, and I hope will be a major force in the bullpen this upcoming year. Let's not forget about the emergence of Brent Honeywell. As long as he can remain healthy, wouldn't that be a terrific story? You know, we don't know when McKay is going to come back, but he will come back. He's going to come back as a hitter first. This team is a very, very good team, but don't let spring training define it. You know, there are things they do differently now that they used to do that they didn't do in the past, but, you know, they're going to need to start extending these pitches a little bit more and getting these arms a little bit stronger than babying them. You know, right now, after the first start, next game, these pitches should be going 4 or 5 innings. I'm sorry. I'm talking about the starting pitches. And then keep it going and keep it going. But, you know, understand that every home run or every hit or every walk that they give up, it's just spring training. Once again, it's just spring training. And, I'm just seeing things by people, and it just amazes me that, some of these people that are out there, think spring training is a regular game and they're getting all upset, which is great. It's great to see baseball back. And, when I lived up north, and, I thought I was listening to WDAE radio, the local radio station here in Tampa, Florida. Love those guys to death. Many, many of those guys have been on our show, from Dave Wills to Rich Hollenberg to Neil Solondz to John Momola to Ronnie Lane to Pat Donovan, just to name a few. Okay, and they've been very, very gracious with us. But I thought Pat Donovan had a great point. He was talking about the difference between up north and down here in the south. But when the baseball season began, when spring training began, it almost was an unsymbolic way of saying it is the switch of seasons. Although it's not the switch of seasons up north, we all know that it's still capable of snowing late into April. It's just something about baseball that symbolizes things are about to change. And I thought Pat Donovan did a terrific job, my buddy, today on WDAE radio when he was talking about that, and they quite couldn't understand Aaron Jacobson, what he was meaning. And, not that anything wrong with Aaron Jacobson. He's from down here. But baseball, you got to remember, it even was here, but that's where I think they were wrong. It was here because me as a baseball fan who was born up north, when I moved down here in 86, except for 2003, they haven't won. The Buccaneers had not won the Super Bowl. This year, people got to think about the Buccaneers later. But you got to remember the Super Bowl usually signified for me that it means there's 2 weeks left until spring training starts. And this year it was the same thing, but we got to celebrate a week later as well, or I should say 4 or 5 weeks later, because the Buccaneers made it to the Super Bowl and won it all. But baseball is here. There's just something about baseball season beginning that tells you there's going to be brighter days ahead. That's what baseball does. in every single aspect of baseball. And I think this is what Pat was trying to tell people, not just the games on the field. Of course, the games on the field bring brighter days because people love the American pastime. But I think he was also trying to say is it brings brighter days. It's the time of year when you turn the clocks ahead and it stays dark later and people start getting their gloves up north out and stop throwing a baseball and getting ready for the season. There is nothing like spring training that has more of a symbolic meaning than the start of a refresh. Baseball takes away a lot of our problems. It hides a lot of the difficulties we're having in everyday life. And boy, have we had a rough 2020, folks. And to see baseball, not just baseball back, like Pat said, but to see it back with, what we consider a full capacity crowd right now for the Rays in spring training, because they're allowing only a certain amount of fans. I think it's 11 or 1,200 fans roughly, and they're packing it out. That is a terrific sign. That is a sign of the times. It's showing you the importance of baseball. And, I'm not talking to Pat right now, but next time I see him, if I do see him, I will definitely tell him it was so true what he was saying. And I couldn't understand why so many people were having difficulty understanding. It's just a refreshing time of year where everything changes. School is just about over in a couple months. Spring breaks are starting if they're allowed to have spring breaks. The greatest time of year begins in the spring and goes through the summer. That's the meaning of baseball. Being able to take your son or daughter to the game, whether it's a spring game in Florida or you come down to visit Florida during spring break and see a spring training game. Those are times, those are memories you're never, ever going to forget. And if you have not figured this out yet, people, life is shorter than we think. We don't know when time is up. You need to get out there and start living today because you don't know if there's going to be a tomorrow. So please take advantage of this time. That's what baseball represents. Going to the ballpark with your family, whether it's yourself, a son, a daughter, a dog. They have dog days at the park now. Okay? It is the greatest time of year. Don't miss the point that Pat Donovan on WDAE radio was saying. What he is saying is so, so true. And I know I lived 13 years in New York, 5 in Massachusetts, or maybe even 6 in Massachusetts before moving down to Florida. And believe me, I guarantee you Pat will say the same thing as me and tell you there is no better place to live in the world than Tampa, Florida, and you root for your teams. But there was just something about baseball. When it began in the month of February towards the end, you knew there was brighter days ahead. Just unbelievable there. Waiting for Brian McRae to come on. He should be on. Let me check my Yep, it looks like he might be having a little difficulty. I got to send the link to his email. Let me do that real quick. All right, let me stay with me, folks. I apologize on that. All right, let me let him know I just did. All right, so we did. He should be coming on in a moment. That's great, great news. All right, so Brian should be on in a moment. I'm not sure. I have to look at the other side of Be Live because I know a lot of my guests, for some reason, in some cases, have had difficulty walking onto the show. So I probably need to look at it and see how Be Live does that because I'm not really sure why. Let's go ahead and take a Let's go ahead and take a 15-second break here to allow their stations to identify themselves.
You're listening to Frankly Speaking Sports with Larry Frank. You're listening to Frankly Speaking Sports with Larry Frank on Northeast Streaming Sports.
And yes, you all want to thank everybody who is tuning in tonight on Northeast Streaming Sports. Want to remind you, we are on so many different platforms. It's unbelievable. Obviously, we're on Facebook group, the Frankly Speaking Sports page. We're on Crew Life. We're on YouTube. If you go to Frankly Speaking Sports on YouTube, subscribe to our YouTube station. It is free. We're also on Twitter at Larry Frankus. That's with the US at the end. You can see that on the bottom scrolling by. And we are also, if for some reason you can't watch our show the next day, you want to listen to our show, we are on Twitter as well as Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes. I think I said Spotify already, just to name a few. So go ahead, folks. Many, many different platforms to go ahead and watch us on as let me just tell them, just follow and it should walk you through it. All right, as Brian is trying to get on, he just went ahead and texted me. So as soon as we get Brian on, we will go ahead and talk to Brian McRae. I don't want to go ahead and start any subject that is going to get too long. I do want to remind you all that as okay. Okay, let me tell him. Please. Okay, so we'll find out what's going on there. It says okay, so we'll wait for him to come on, folks. I do apologize. Like I said, I'm not on the other end, so I can't see what's the holdup. That's the only problem when you do interviews like that. You have two different sides, and I can't see what's going on the other side to try to help. So sometimes it gets a little difficult. So I do apologize about that. Hopefully, Brian will be on in one moment, and we'll be able to go ahead and get him on. We're going to give it a couple minutes, but he is trying to get in right now. So as soon as we get Brian on, we will go ahead and do that. So like I said, I'm not there, so it's really hard for me, unfortunately. But I'll have to ask. Bradley Lewis comes on tomorrow night with our USF Bulls show. I want to remind everybody. And let me see if I can go ahead and give you an update on why we're trying to get Brian on here. Tomorrow night, former USF Bull Andre Hall will be joining us live on our USF platform, Bullseye. Show begins at 9 o'clock. Then Wednesday night, former New York Met pitcher Doug Sisk will be joining us live And then former 1969 New York Met and also played on the 73 team, Jim Gosger, will be joining us as well. So Andre Hall from USF tomorrow. We're going to have Doug Sisk Wednesday, and Jim Gosger is going to be joining us on Thursday. So great shows coming up. We're waiting again to get Brian McRae on. He should be on momentarily. If he can't get on for some reason through the video, we will go ahead and do an interview live with him over the phone. So either way, we will go ahead. Okay, we'll see if he opens an app, and hopefully he'll be going on. All right, we are a couple seconds away, folks. So I do apologize for the hesitation here. As soon as we get him on, he is trying to get on right now. So we'll give it a couple more seconds. After the interview with Brian McRae, we are going to talk about the big acquisition today, J.J. Watt. So J.J. Watt was picked up by the Arizona Cardinals for a 2-year deal. So we will definitely talk about that right after our interview with Brian McRae. And like I said, he should be on any moment. And we will hopefully, like I said, he's trying to get on right now. So it should be any second before we see him come on. All righty here. We'll give him 1 or 2 more minutes. Otherwise, we'll just go ahead and do the interview. Okay, try now. I can't read what it's saying. All right, let me tell him to kick out and then. One more. We will do phone interview. All right. He's going to kick out real quickly, try one more time, and then we'll try to do a phone interview. So I do apologize about that, folks. But you know what? We hopefully will have him on in a matter of seconds. I'm not sure, once again, you know, it's the hardest part about being the person that does everything on your show, because you can't talk to people while you're doing a live show. So it just makes it really, really difficult. So I do apologize about that. So hopefully we'll have Brian on in a couple seconds. Once again, I'm not sure what's going on and why it's having difficulty coming on. But hopefully we'll be able to have him on in a second. Otherwise, we'll just do a phone interview with Brian and get him on. He's texting me back right now. So let me see what he says, and then we'll go ahead and we'll continue our show. Sorry about some of this dead time that we've had. Okay. Why? A phone. All right, folks. Thank you so much for sticking with us. I'm just going to have him give us the phone number here so I can go ahead and give him a call, and then we can go ahead and do this over the phone because for some reason we can't get him on. Before I do that, let's go ahead and watch this play from Brian McRae so we get a feel for who Brian McRae was, folks.
2-2 pitch again. Liner deep to center field. Back goes McRae. Wow! What a grab by McRae! This one deserves a wow. And how? McRae, being the contortionist, makes a tremendous grab in center field.
What an unbelievable catch that was by Brian McRae. And we're going to go ahead and get this all set up. We're going to get Brian McRae on the phone with us so that way we can go ahead and do this interview. All right. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's my great honor, thrill, and pleasure to have on the Frankly Speaking Sports Northeast Streaming Sports Line. Let's welcome in former Major League Baseball center fielder Brian McRae. Brian, how you doing this evening, buddy?
I'm good, thank you. And yourself?
I'm doing good. I apologize about the difficulty with getting in. It's real hard for me to know what's going on from this side of things, so I do apologize about that.
No problem at all.
Brian, let me ask you this. Growing up, I always wondered how much extra pressure was on you to succeed at a younger level. Let's say junior high or middle school, high school, those early years, due to the fact that you had a dad who was playing in the major league at that time.
I didn't play organized sports until I got to high school for the most part. I didn't play football, and I didn't put on pads in football until my freshman year, and I really didn't play a whole lot of organized baseball going into junior high because I just played in the yard. So I was playing with my friends and playing in the yard, and my dad, I don't know if he did it purposely or not, but I stayed away from playing a lot of organized ball. So I didn't worry about it. I played a lot, and I played with my friends, and we just made up games.
And, I know after high school, when you're a senior in high school, you didn't expect to go high in the Major League Baseball draft. I know you were actually at some point, talking about going to Kansas to possibly play 2 sports. How surprised were you when the Royals came back and picked you number 17 in the first round?
I was surprised because the Royals weren't around a lot during high school ball or summer ball watching me play. The Angels, I think they had 5 first-round picks at that time, so I saw a lot of Angels scouts around and a lot of Yankees, a couple of Yankee scouts that were around. But the way baseball was scouted, amateur baseball was scouted at that time, was a lot different. So even if guys were touted as being high-round picks, you really didn't know a whole lot because there weren't a lot of publications that were out there talking you up. So nobody really knew what was going on as far as where you're going to get drafted or if you were going to get drafted at all, because it was kind of hush-hush, and you saw some scouts around, but you didn't really know what was going on. And I knew that there were other teams that had followed me my senior year, and the Royals weren't one of them.
Now, you finally do sign. Obviously, things change, and got a nice signing bonus. You signed with the Royals. How special was it for you in 1985 that they bring you up for the spring training roster and allow you the opportunity to play in the same game with your dad?
It was nice. 85, when I was drafted, I didn't get to go to any of the playoff or World Series games because I was playing in instructional league in the minor leagues, and the team and the minor league directors gave me the opportunity, if I wanted to go and to see some games in the World Series. But I felt that I needed to be in minor league camp with all the other minor leaguers, and I didn't want any special treatment, so I didn't go to any games in 1985, and I got to play in some games in spring training in 1986, the following year, to play with the majority of the guys that won the World Series, and got to play a few games with my dad in the lineup, and that was fun. Every first round pick gets invited to spring training the following year, regardless of if they're a high school or a college guy. So it was nothing that they did that was out of the ordinary. And usually you don't stick around spring training too long after they start games. You're there for probably the first week or 2 of spring training games, and then they ship you back to minor league camp. But it was neat to be able to play in a game with my dad and play well and be in big league spring training with the guys that won the World Series the year before.
And then not too much later, you get that opportunity to actually play for your father. I think the last one I remember doing that was Cal Ripken with his dad Cal. But did you find it or either way more difficult to play for your dad because he was manager, or did it come easier, or was it pretty much the same for you, Brian?
Well, the big key for me was just that I was already established. Or getting established. I was there before my father got there. I was already in the big leagues, so that made me feel better about the uniqueness of the situation. It wasn't like he got the job and then I was able to come up because my dad was managing. I was already there, and before he got the job, and it was just odd because everywhere that we went that first year and a half or so, the reporters and people in the other cities didn't want to talk about what the team was doing, but they wanted to talk about more of me and my father's relationship, being father-son playing, and that was kind of unsettling at times because it had nothing to do with what we as a team were doing, and I didn't like the spotlight being focused on me or my father. He's just starting out managing, and I'm trying to start, the first 2 or 3 years building my career. And I thought that was a little, that was a little unnerving at times because you can only answer the question so many times. It was neat to be able to play for my father and be around him at that time, but we also had a job to do was win games and produce, and that superseded everything else.
Now, you're playing in the minor leagues, obviously, before you get to the majors. What was going on in your mind, Brian, knowing that the potential guy that you're going to replace is Bo Jackson?
I knew Bo from playing with him in the minor leagues and being around him for a couple years. So he was just Bo. It wasn't that big of a deal.
Right.
So that was what was funny. It was like, you replaced but for me, I've been around him so long and was used to him. Like that was just Bo. He was Bo, and he was a ball player, and it didn't seem like it was that big of a deal because I've been around him for the last 2 or 3 years, and he was just one of the guys, just like everybody else.
Now he gets hurt, and you finally have your, not because necessarily Bo got hurt. You are the guy next in line. They tried a couple of guys out. You come up after 4 years in the minor, Brian, and something, you actually come up and your numbers offensively get better in the major leagues than they were in the minor leagues. Is there something you did when you got to the major leagues that maybe settled you a little bit more, or was it just a matter of getting the reps in and eventually things would come to the forefront? Because you hit considerably better when you were in the major leagues than you did in the minors.
I just think it was maturity and getting bigger, stronger. I was switch hitting, so I was learning how to switch hit, and I changed positions also from being a infielder to going to the outfield. So I think a lot of those things all played. I was still young. I signed at 17, so I was behind age-wise, and it just took me a little bit longer to catch up. And they say a lot of times when you come from Double-A, which I did, to the big leagues, that pitchers are around the plate more, and the lighting in the field is better. You're going to see better. They said that some guys will play better in the big leagues because they're playing against better competition. Pitchers are around the plate more, and I think it's more maturity than anything else.
Now, how surprised were you in '95 when they traded you to the Cubs?
Wasn't surprised at all because of what had been going on with the labor negotiations, with the '94 strike, and with the team kind of being in disarray after the death of Ewing Kauffman. So there were some things that were going on here in Kansas City that, they weren't they weren't conducting business like Mr. K was trying to win, and they had no ownership group, no direction. So they were selling off everybody, and I think David Cohn got traded either a day or two before me or behind me. So they pretty much broke up that good team. We had a good nucleus in '93 and '94, and I felt that we had a chance to make the playoffs in '94 if it wasn't for the strike. And once that was over, I didn't see any future for me long-term in Kansas City or my father, and I didn't see any winning anytime soon. And I don't think they won again until 2003.
Now, you were, we talked about your offense, but you were a tremendous defensive center fielder. I showed some clips, a clip before you came on, of some catches that you have made. I mean, you really prided yourself in flashing that leather, didn't you?
I thought defensively it was something that I had to work on because I was an infielder and moved to the outfield. And that's something that I pride myself in because every day you can be a good defensive player. You're not going to have it offensively. But defensively, more than not, especially in the outfield, you can be a game changer. You can do some things to help your team win, even if you're not hitting the ball well, not on base, things like that. So I felt that defense was something that I needed to continue to work on, especially with the change of positions, and something that should not, in my position in center field, I shouldn't slump that much defensively. So I really took pride in being a good defensive player, being able to be out there every day.
Now, you were a switch hitter, Brian, and I ask you this because I know you were involved in coaching as well later on after your career, and you hit 38 points better from the right side. Today, from a coach's point of view, do you think it's a good thing for kids to learn switch hitting, or do you think they should put 100% of their efforts in hitting a single way?
It's hard to have you're two different people, and you have to work on both sides. And, basically they told guys that can run a little bit that it would be an advantage to switch hit because you're closer to first base from the left side and you can bunt and do some things like that. You're not going to see as many switch hitters nowadays coming up because the game is changed and it's more the power game and slugging it out. So I think that's something that, I think Chipper Jones type guys, you're not going to see too many of them going forward. I don't even know who probably is the best switch hitter right now in today's game. I'm trying to think of if I could name 3 or 4 really good switch hitters. I don't think there's a whole lot. There's probably somebody slipping my mind, but there's not a whole lot out there like they were 20, 30, 40 years ago.
No, I agree. Now, let me ask you this on the same subject. You were a leadoff hitter for a long part of your career. And, when you look at the leadoff position in the days you played, it was more about getting on base, whether it's bunting and then stealing or doing hit and runs and all those things that leadoff hitters are known to be part of. Is the leadoff hitter today overrated compared to what it was when you played due to the way the game has changed?
I still think the leadoff hitter still is a guy on most teams that can run a little bit, set the table, can do different things. There's a few teams that have put a non-traditional, so to speak, hitter in the leadoff role for a while. I know the Cubs had Rizzo leading off for a little bit, but you still have the guys that get on base, can go to first and third, they can hit and run if they need to. If the bottom guys at the bottom get on, they can do some things that more suited to being a small game type run producer than the guys that hit 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 that are just asked to see how far they can hit it and slug it out.
Yeah, do you miss that small ball aspect of the game of getting productive at it? And like you said, those 6, 7, 8 guys maybe doing things that were a little bit more to manufacture runs than trying to hit home runs or strike out?
I miss it because that was my game. If I hit 50 home runs a year, then I'd be okay with what's going on now.
Now, you also,
my game and what I was brought up watching with the Reds in the late 60s and the early 70s, and the Royals in their good run from 73 to 85, the baseball that I grew up watching, you don't see a lot of teams playing that now. It's totally different game, but they're different athletes doing some different things. It's not what I grew up watching. It's not how I was taught. But as a coach in this era, you have to learn how to adjust and how to work with the skill set of the players that you have. They're not as athletic, so you had to do some different things, and that's what I've tried to do as a coach now. My theories and what I learned from the coaches I had and watching things from those good Royals and Reds teams, I can't coach that way now.
Right. I mean, could that way work today?
It could, and I think you've seen some of that. The Royals in 2014 and 2015, they won a World Series that way. They went to 2 World Series. Pitching, defense, still stole bases, gap-to-gap hitters. The Rays, to a little extent, last year were kind of like that. The Cubs a little bit in 2016. So you can win that way, but the game has gone away from some of those things that people liked and people enjoyed, as far as stolen bases, hit and run, running, manufacturing runs, and don't wait for the big inning. The game is, I don't think it's ever going to go back to where it was that way.
Well, I love that game because I thought it was exciting that way. That's just because I grew up with it. So for me, I love that style of baseball. Couple more questions before I let you run, Brian. I used to have the opportunity. I did some work with the New York Yankees. Was on the field with them, and one of my good buddies, Ricky Henderson, I used to tease a lot. And you were a base stealer like Ricky was, and I always used to tease Ricky, you're fast. That's why you steal a lot of bases. And he'd look at me and go, no, I'm smart. That's why I steal a lot of bases. And we kid around back and forth. But the one thing when things got serious that I understood from Ricky was there is a lot more to stealing a base in baseball than being fast, isn't there?
It's studying the pitcher, studying the catcher, finding some little subtle things that they do by watching film or just sitting there on the bench. I always had a notepad either in my locker that I'd write down things on pitchers and catchers, or I would have it on the bench with me where I could see if, Tom Glavine, for example, for a lot of years, when he would exhale after he came set, he was always throwing the ball home. He would never pick off and throw to first base. Watched him for a while. I saw some things on film, and I noticed that, and I was able to, steal bases off him, even though he had a decent move for a left-hander, because I knew as soon as he exhaled, that was his signal that his mind was now concentrating on the batter and not the runner. And for like 6 years, I stole bases off of him. Anytime he exhaled, if I got on, I ran. So that's smart, wise, just learning, watching, picking up subtle things on how catchers do certain things, how pitchers do certain things. That's part of it, and that's part of the game that I liked. And you share information that you find, and I like to find out things on other teams, how we can beat them in some different ways, and then go share that information with my teammates and watch us exploit it.
Right, I can understand that. How was playing in New York City? I mean, played a couple years there with the Mets, had some decent years with the Mets. I mean, I think one of your best power years came with the Mets, if I remember correctly, too. How was it playing in front?
New York, because I was older. I wouldn't have liked it as a 22-year-old with all the pressure and the hype that's laid on players in New York, but and that was probably the most fun I had offensively, because I had to hit behind John Olerud and Mike Piazza. For most of the year, I started off in the leadoff spot, but for most of the year I hit fifth, which I'd never done before. I was in a position to do damage and in an RBI position, and I had two of the best hitters in baseball in front of me. Teams were very, very selective how they pitched those guys. They were on base a lot. I came up in situations where they had to pitch to me, and I was able to drive in 80 runs and, do some things that I hadn't done before offensively, but it was all a credit to, John Olerud, one of the best hitters, left-handed hitters in the National League at that time, and Mike Piazza, one of the best right-handed hitters. So I had two guys in front of me that pitchers did not want them to beat them.
Right.
So I got it. I was able to take advantage of being that guy behind them that they're like, okay, we're not going to let O'Rourke beat us. We're not going to let Piazza beat us. If McRae beats us, that's fine, but we're not going to let those other guys do it.
Now, last question, then I'll let you run, Brian. After baseball, you got into some broadcasting. I know you did for a while. How hard is it for a freshly retired player to come out of the game and to broadcast? And what I mean by that is to be able to broadcast and still watch the game and not want to be out there.
Well, when I was done, I was pretty much done. My body, I was ready. It was 15 years of beating up my body, 5 years in the minor leagues, 10 years in the big league. I have been prepping for being a broadcaster while I was playing. I did radio shows, I had TV shows, I did weekly things. So it was something that I wanted to do since I was a kid. Before I wanted to play ball, I wanted to be a broadcaster. I enjoyed that, and there's tapes that my mom and dad have at the house of me acting like a broadcaster, talking into tape recorders. So that was something that I studied. I worked on it. I went back to school during the strike in '94 at the University of Kansas and took broadcast journalism classes. So it wasn't that tough of a transition for me, because when I was ready to stop playing, when I was done, I was done. My body was beat up, my mind was done, I was done, and I was ready to move on.
Well, listen, Brian, I want to thank you so very, very much for joining us tonight on Frankly Speaking Sports and taking time out of your schedule for us. We really enjoyed having you.
Thank you very much, and I'm sorry that we couldn't. I couldn't get everything on the computer set, but nonetheless, I enjoyed talking to you, and it's always good talking baseball. And with all the craziness of everything going on, it's a pleasure and a relief to have something to look forward to every day in baseball.
Well, thanks again, buddy, and be safe, okay?
Thank you very much.
All right, bye-bye. That was Brian McRae, the great center fielder, used to play for the New York Mets, Chicago Cubs, the Royals, the Rockies, the Blue Jays. So very, very happy. Finally got him on. We're so glad that you folks stayed with us. We're going to take a quick 15-second break once again to let our stations identify themselves. When we'll come back, we're going to come back to our last segment. Got delayed a little bit because of the difficulty we had with getting Brian on, but we're going to talk about J.J. Watt and what J.J. Watt, was it a good move, a bad move, or what kind of move was it for the Cardinals to go ahead and sign him to a 2-year deal today? We'll be back right after this.
You're listening to Frankly Speaking Sports with Larry Frank on North.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking Sports. So glad to have you with us. And, before we went on break, I mentioned to you that we were going to go ahead and talk about J.J. Watt and the situation that happened earlier today with Watt signing a 2-year deal. I think it was for $31 million, 23 of it guaranteed. And, I've been listening to certain people talk about this move, some thinking it was good, some thinking it was bad. When I look at every single aspect of this move after the year that I see J.J. Watt had this year, I think it was a fantastic move by the Arizona Cardinals to go ahead and sign him. You got to understand, this was a defense, the Arizona Cardinals, that were 10th in the league this year. From 2019, they went from the worst defense to 10th in the league. So, pretty decent defense. They were missing a couple of pieces, and they're about to lose a couple pieces. The one thing about Watt is he was disruptive the entire year. Whether it was running or passing, he was always there. He's a veteran leader, which is something the Arizona Cardinals need on defense. He fills the needs. You got to remember, the Cardinals just missed making the playoff. And a lot of that was due to that they didn't have that one more guy that they needed on defense. And a lot of people say, well, he only had 5 sacks. Numbers don't tell everything. For you Tampa Bay fans that are out there, you should be able to explain to everybody out there that numbers don't show everything. You got a guy on that team named Vita Vea on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers that if you look at him from a statistical standpoint, it doesn't show a lot. If you look at Dominic Sue, it doesn't show a lot. But without those two guys, you do not win. You do not win the Super Bowl. And this is a guy that is going to make that front 7 of the Arizona Cardinals that much better. He is a missing piece. He is a disruptive piece that is going to keep offensive linemen on their toes, so that front 7 is going to be that much better because of him being present there. He's going to allow other people the opportunity to make big plays. It may not be J.J. Watt making all these big plays, but he's going to be the reason why other people can make the big play. I mean, the Texans were 21st against the run because the only guy that was disrupting people on that Houston team was J.J. Watt. So this is definitely a boost for the front 7. Now, I will tell you something, you Arizona Cardinal fans. Watt can't do it alone. You're going to lose a couple of guys, but you need to re-sign this guy, Hassan Reddick, who had 12.5 sacks for you last year. You put him back and re-sign him and put J.J. Watt on this Arizona Cardinal team. That may be the thing that goes ahead and gets this team over the hump. I mean, offensively, you got Murray. You got Drake, who rushed for almost 1,000 yards. You got Hopkins, who is now reunited with J.J. Watt, been trying to recruit him now forever. Well, guess what? He is back there. And I would not be surprised if this Arizona team can go out and just solidify a couple of more spots here and there on that defensive side of the football. This is going to be a dangerous Cardinal team next year, and they still got plenty of money under the cap to go ahead and add another player because of the way it's $23 million guaranteed. So the way they structured this contract is very, very good for the Arizona Cardinals from a cap standpoint. So for those of you guys, don't think, and Watt wasn't hurt a lot this year. I was playing most of the games. Watt, what is he? I think he's 32. Don't quote me on his age, but he still has a couple of good years left in him. And I think the next 2 years could be very important for the Cardinals. But this is a team that is pushing the brink of the playoffs. Are they going to win the Super Bowl with them? Who knows in football? Every single year, something else happens that surprises you know what out of us. But I'll tell you what, this is the same guy that I've been hearing people in Tampa Bay saying if we lose someone, we should go after this guy. There was teams, the Colts and the Browns, offering more money for this guy. He didn't take the money. He wanted to go where he felt most comfortable and where he had a chance to win. Now, some people would say, well, don't the Browns have a chance to win? Who knows what the Browns? This is the team he chose, okay? And I think he's going to surprise a lot of people next year. And, it always comes back to me. Comes back when people go, wow, Larry, You know, you were right about this. You were right about that. You know, we do our homework here, Frankly Speaking Sports. We're not just feeding, you know, the great John Mamola from WDAE. I listen to him a lot when he does do his shows or any conversations. And the one thing he always said, is that you don't have to always be first. You have to be right. And that's the same way when we report this information. I don't go ahead and report stuff to you due to the fact that I heard it somewhere or somebody else said it. I make sure it's right. I have reliable sources that very, very rarely, I won't say never make a mistake, but are very reliable, and I utilize them as much as possible. And, you know, John's already said, be right before you're first. It's not important to be first if you're wrong. What good is that? And it makes a lot of sense. And that's what John says. And I follow that to a T. That is one of those things that I took away from him when I spoke to him. And we had the privilege of having him on our show. It's not about who's first. It's about who's right. Your credit isn't due on the fact that you're first. It's due on the fact that you are right. Ladies and gentlemen, want to thank you very much for staying with us a little bit later today. Hopefully you enjoyed the conversation that we had today with Brian McRae. Just a great, as I move this around, let me get this off there a minute. All right, there we go. So we want to thank him very much for coming on today. Tomorrow night, remember, we will be on our USF platform, Bullseye. Aaron Hall, let me make sure find my phone here. And I want to make sure that we give you all the right information as we have. Tomorrow is going to be, like I said, Andre Hall will be joining us, former USF football player, tomorrow night on Bullseye. If you're not a member of Bullseye, all capital letters, 2 words, Bulls with an S, and then I, all capital letters on Facebook. Become a member. All the latest update news on USF athletics, as well as terrific interviews on our Bullseye show with Bradley Lewis and myself on Tuesday nights. Wednesday, former New York Met reliever Doug Sisk is going to be joining us. And then on Thursday, we'll keep it with the Mets. Former 1969 world champion, New York Met, 1973 NL champion Jim Gosger will be on with us. So terrific week. We got lots and lots of great guests for you. Make sure you tune in. Want to also thank Northeast Streaming Sports for allowing us to go live tonight on their site, Northeast Streaming Sports. Lots and lots of different shows. Make sure you become a member, as well as on Frankly Speaking Sports.